What is up, my beach looking people? My name is Frank here on Beach Looking Guy, and in this video we will go over the techniques used to crawl drop on the water while running full speed. This video is recommended for those who are more advanced and have a good idea of how to ride a skimboard fast and under control. If you are new to my channel and want to pursue a crawl drop, I suggest you watch my beginner guide to crawl drops first. It's very important you start slow and steady, gradually building up your speed as you get more comfortable and confident. Being able to use the drop on water is very difficult and requires that you know very well what you are doing. If you neglect starting in the beginner stages, it may result in a very bad experience with the drop and often can cause serious injuries. Before we get into the details of the drop, I'd like to explain a couple of things. This video will be teaching techniques to achieve the best side slip possible. Crawl drops should mainly be used for achieving long range side slips. If you're not trying to side slip and catch waves, a traditional drop will work just fine for 99% of riders. Benefits of a crawl drop include better control over the dropping of the board. For example, you don't need to kick sand and won't drop the board sloppy because your hands never leave the board. Second, in the way you project your body and momentum onto the board when you drop, you are allowing for a much smoother and faster transition, meaning more speed overall. Last, having a beach or tide that isn't setting up properly will make crawl drops very difficult to execute. So sometimes it can be good to switch to traditional drops for the time being or for certain waves. Water drops will require you to be very quick and precise with your technique. Being slow and clunky will always make the drop harder and slower than a traditional drop, so it's important to be confident and comfortable with the drop on wet sand. I spent weeks only dropping on wet sand until I felt ready to try water drops. So don't get ahead of yourself, otherwise you can get injured really bad. My first times trying water drops pretty much consisted of using the beginner techniques, except using a small bit of water at the top of the slope instead of wet sand. At this point, you don't want to focus on catching waves. If you're learning the drop, focus on getting the best setup to practice just that. Trying to set up for waves while learning the drop is going to be counterproductive, as you need to get the drop down 100% before you attempt riding waves. Practice this way from time to time and get a good feeling of what a little bit of water is like with the drop. First thing is going to be where you start on the beach. I always like to give myself as much room as possible when using this drop. It really allows me to build up a consistent stride and get as much momentum as possible. Most of the time, I find myself standing 5 or 10 feet behind other riders on the beach. This also gives you more options to move around as you spot waves coming in and command more space on the beach. When reading the waves, you are going to want a lot of clean, open space between your drop and the wave you're trying to catch, along with having clean space where you drop the board. So it's best to wait for the sets to come in. As the first couple of waves pass through, you should start to notice how all the water really starts to smooth out between waves. As you start to decide what wave you want to go for, allow the wave in front of that to break and push up the slope. Eventually, all the water should settle at its peak. This will give you a nice, clean runway to get onto the board and slide far. As the water rushes up the slope from the breaking wave, there is a bit of a sweet spot where you will drop right before or just as the water starts to settle at the top. With the crawl drop, you want to make your drop zone as deep as possible. It's always best to get as many steps as possible before dropping. Drop the board in a space where you will have good control and time to react to imperfections in the water. As the wave breaks and starts to set up a good runway, begin running towards the spot you want to drop. Your run should be a fast, consistent stride. At first, you will want to start off with a slower run, but you always want to have a nice, consistent stride no matter how fast you are running. Hand position is very important as it will be the leverage you use to get a good run and drop. Whichever foot rides on the front of the board should correspond with the hand that holds the front of the board. My right foot is forward on the board, so my right hand holds the nose. This hand will stay in one position for the entire running and dropping cycle. For the hand holding the tail of the board, you want to hold as far back as you can. This hand position allows for nice control over the sway of the board while you run. It's important to be as steady as possible and not allow too much board sway as you run. It's okay to have some, but there is a point where it can start to hinder your overall speed and control. Hold the board at a slight angle for a more comfortable running posture. As you begin to find your ideal spot to drop, you're going to want to adjust the hand on the tail of the board up towards the nose. This hand movement usually happens anywhere from the last 3 to 5 steps before dropping. As you bend down to drop, you're going to want to allow your body to have as much extension as possible. This means you really want to lean forward into your crawl drop. This is where bringing the back hand up towards the nose really allows you to reach out into the drop. Being very soft but firm, drop the board and move your hands onto the top of the deck. The more forward you can lean into the drop, the less downward force you will put onto the board. This will make the drop smoother and faster. Your last step is what will really put the cherry on top when it comes to getting all of your speed. One of the reasons crawl drops are so good is because of this position right here. Traditional drops do not allow for the amount of leverage you have when crawl dropping. One way I like to think of it is the way a sprinter starts their race. This position allows a lot of force to be pushed directly forward. This means a much stronger last push as you get onto the board and less downward force when stepping on. As your front foot comes around to step on the board, allow it to kick up way behind you. Then, as you pull your front foot in, bring your knee up towards your chest. This will allow all of the momentum from your running to transition as fast and smooth as possible. As your feet all make final contact, use your knees as shock absorbers to smooth out the drop and then push your hands off the board. And that's about it for all the steps and details when doing a crawl drop. The crawl drop can be a lot faster than what you might be used to, so it will probably take some getting used to maintaining control. For many weeks, I mostly focused on building up my comfort and control when dropping full speed, setting up for the best drop possible and getting more and more comfortable. I'd say it took about 3 months before I was a very confident crawl dropper on the wet sand and water. But the extra practice learning the drop has opened opportunity for easier and better waves due to the timing of the drop and how much speed you can get. Well, I think that's about it for this video, guys, on advanced crawl drop techniques. I really hope it was helpful. If it was, give me a like and a subscribe if you haven't already, and let me know down below in the comments section what you thought. I got a lot more videos coming in the near future, so stay tuned. Get out there and start practicing some crawl drops, guys. They're really fun. They're fast. Get out there, take it easy. Have fun, guys. Until next time, I'm Frank here on Beach Looking Guy. Peace out.